Hello my friends, welcome to this new practical tutorial where we're going to start the implementation of our very first machine learning model, a very simple one, the linear regression model. Alright, so the first part of this code is to import the dataset, and so we're going to click this plus code feature here to add a code cell, and then inside we will import the dataset. Then we will run the cell, and then we will just add one extra line of code to display the 5 first rows of the dataset, after which I will explain what this dataset is about and why we're building a machine learning model for it. Alright, so let's do this. So the beauty about coding machine learning today is the libraries. There are tons of libraries which allow you to build your variables and perform some actions on them thanks to libraries. For example, now, thanks to classes, which I will explain later, you can build a machine learning model with only 2 or 3 lines of code. And of course, we're going to use those libraries because they make us very efficient at building those models. So the first library that we're going to import here is called pandas, and this is the library you want to use whenever you want to do some data pre-processing. I remind that now we are in level 1, so there will be little or no data pre-processing to do. It will be a very simple data set, so we will just use pandas mostly to import the data set and then getting, later on separately the input and output, as well as creating the training set and the test set. That's all, and then in the higher levels we will do some more advanced data pre-processing. Alright, so let's do this. The way to import a library in Python is to do import. Then you add here the name of the libraries, which is called pandas. And then a common practice is to add a shortcut. There you go. See, it guesses what you want to do. To add a shortcut, you add here as, and then the name of your shortcut, which is usually PD for pandas. And the purpose of this is that instead of calling pandas like that each time we want to use one of its functions, well, we can directly use the shortcut PD, which is much faster. Now, second line of code, we're going to create a variable which will be nothing else than our dataset. So we're actually going to call our variable name dataset, and this variable is going to be what is returned by a specific function of pandas, which exactly imports your dataset from your directory folder. And since here we have an Excel file, well, the name of this function by pandas is read_Excel. And that's exactly what we're going to call right now. But whenever we call a function from a library, we have to call the library first, which has the shortcut name PD, right? And then we add a dot, and then we call the function, which is called, as we said, read_, and the third one here, Excel, right? In the course, I will show you how to import both an Excel file and a CSV file. Here we start with an Excel file, but you'll see that in a classification, we will import a CSV file and therefore we'll use a different function. Then we add some parentheses, and very simply, inside the parentheses as input, we enter in quotes the name of our dataset, which is data.xlsx. Alright, and that's it. You are ready to import your dataset from your directory folder, and to do so, you simply need to click the play button here to run this cell, and congrats, this cell was successfully run. So now, nothing happens in the output because we just created a variable. However, we're going to create a new code cell now, where we're going to use a function of our dataset variable, which will return the 5 first rows of our dataset. And this will give me the opportunity to explain better what this dataset is about. And this function is called head, and the way to call this function from our variable is to call first your variable, meaning dataset, then add a dot, and then add the function. And as we said, the name of this function is head, and you add some parentheses. Alright, perfect. Now let's run the cell, and you will see displayed the 5 first rows of your dataset. There you go. Alright, so now let me explain what this dataset is about. So this dataset contains around 10,000 rows, right, which are data points collected from a combined cycle power plant over 6 years. And for each of these data points, well, we have those 5 columns here, which are first AT, the ambient temperature, then V, the exhaust vacuum, then AP, the ambient pressure, then RH, the relative humidity, And then finally PE, the net Pauli electrical energy output. Alright? And now, a very important thing to understand in machine learning, you have to make the difference between your input and your output. In other words, you have to make the difference between the independent variables and the dependent variable. And so here, the inputs, meaning our independent variables, are exactly those variables because these are the ones with which we're going to predict the output, which is also called the dependent variable. So let's recap. In machine learning, you always have separately the input or independent variables and the output or dependent variable. And it is with those independent variables that you're going to predict your dependent variable. All right? And so we're going to build a machine learning model which is going to learn the correlations between those independent variables and the dependent variable so that whenever we add a new observation with new data, well, it can predict the output for this new data. And this data set is very simple because indeed we only have numerical values, we don't have any categories. So we will simply then get the input and output separately and then create the training set and the test set before heading to part 2 where we're going to build our machine learning model. I can't wait to do this in the next tutorials, and until then, enjoy machine learning.